What is going on, everybody? This is the Undefeated by Choice podcast brought to you by Stillfist. We are in the midst of some wildness in the world of MMA. It's kind of tough being someone who talks about MMA right now because it doesn't look like a lot is going to be going on in the next couple of weeks as far as fights go. We just got word of cancellation of the UFC London card, Woodley versus Edwards. So that sucks. Khabib Ferguson definitely is got a lot of people worried, concerned, terrified. So we'll see. They say they're going to do that one. I think they tried to relocate the London card to the Apex in Vegas, but I guess they just couldn't pull the main event together. I think the card still might be going on. They still might put on fights, but that main event spot will not happen. My guess would be there was some visa issues with Edwards coming out of London into the United States. But that's speculation. I haven't looked, haven't checked Twitter yet to confirm that. I just found out that the fight has been called off. Here in Utah, we're feeling the effects of it as well. They have canceled all sporting events. There was a few other cards that were supposed to fall within that the next 2 weeks that have all been canceled. But Stillfist is just outside of that 2-week window. So April 4th, we still are planning. We're still anticipating on putting a card. We still plan on showing up and putting on fights for you. So it's been interesting. Of course, we're gonna keep the best eye we can on the fighters and make sure that everyone's healthy stepping into the octagon. I know that you can't really, we don't have the funds to kind of to really do the testing, but I mean, we'll do the best we can. We do the best we can because we want to put on fights. It's all of us as fight fans. I mean, we know how important this is. We know how scary this whole thing is. But it's like you try to find a way to keep going. You find a way to you just find a way to keep going, to look something to look forward to instead of sitting at your house. I mean, think of it like down the road, we're not going to have movie productions because you can't have the crews get together. There's, new television shows aren't going to be getting filmed. There's not going to be anything new coming out. So, we're looking for some sort of entertainment. And right now we're so early in it, we still get it. But, if things continue, we're going to be in a rough way. So it's important for us to get what we can out while we can. It's important for us to entertain the fans while we can, because we don't know how much longer we're going to be able to do it, until we get this thing figured out. So, April 4th, it might be your last chance to watch fights for a while. Who knows? So make sure you get your tickets and you come out to the show and you celebrate what you can while you can, because you don't know what you got until it's gone. And I'm telling you right now, the way things are looking, we don't know. We don't know. We just don't know. So if you have your chance in 2 weeks to get together and to come watch the fights, it may be the last ones for a while. But I'm not going to harp on that too much. We'll see how everything unfolds. I don't know. I'm not a doctor. It's funny. I'm just watching all the outpour of. There's just two camps. There's the camp of this isn't that big of a deal. It's there's only a few thousand people in a sea of 1 billion people, and it's really only hitting older people, and there's only 2 cases here and a few cases there, and then I hear that this is the biggest threat to mankind that we've ever seen, and it's going to just run rampant through the population, and it's really serious, and everyone's buying up all the toilet paper. It's crazy. It's a crazy time we live in. It's just there's nothing I really can say about it. You guys have been hearing me cough on here for the past 2 weeks, and I don't think I have it. I got a older mom that it would be not be very good if she was to get it. Either of my parents. I guess any of my parents. I consider my stepmom a parent, so any of my parents. It's not safe for any of them to get it. But I've been around all of them, and none of them. They're all still seem to be doing really well. So I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what to say about it. It's crazy. That's all I can say about it. It's nuts. But we did have some fights last night. UFC fight night. Lee versus Oliveira. And overall, I'd give that whole card, I don't know, a C minus. It was okay. There were some shining moments. There was some good stuff, and there was some pretty awful stuff. Not really awful, but just like underwhelming. I mean, the majority of the fights went to a decision. So many of them went to a decision, and that's tough. Like if you have wars like Weili Zhang and Joanna, then you're gonna say, hey, give me a decision every single time. I'll watch that any day of the week. But when they're not like that, and there's not the greatest action, kind of gets to be a little tough to watch when they're all decisions. And so I believe it was the first. I'll go over it, but it might have been like the first 4 or 5 fights all went to decision, which just made it for an extra long night. But they weren't all bad. They were good. Malecki versus Makado. That was a fun fight to watch. Malecki had the length. She was really trying to utilize her length, but Makado just kept coming forward, and she just kept putting herself in harm's way to try to get that knockout punch, because she knew that she didn't have the range to stand outside and pick apart her fighter. So she just was rushing in, and she was connecting a lot. I thought she won the first round. I thought there was a good chance she was going to win the fight, but Malecki won due to a unanimous decision, and it was a good fight. It was a good way to kick off the card. Then you had Dovorek versus Silva. Dovorek won by unanimous decision. This fight was it was okay. It was fine. There was some good spots, but it was an average fight. Nothing really stuck out. Murrow versus Bueno Silva. That was a real fun fight to watch, because Bueno Silva was undefeated up until that point, and she's tough, man. She's tough. She was really taking a beating, and Murrow was really controlling her on the ground, just being heavy on her and keeping her down and having some good ground and pound. So it was an impressive win by Murrow. Another unanimous decision. But Bueno Silva, she'll be back, man. She's tough. She is tough. She was really getting battered for a minute there, and she didn't give up. She didn't roll over. Ronnie Yaya. This one went to a draw, which, man, I can't remember exactly who I had winning this fight. I think it was Ronnie Yaya versus Enrique Barzola. And I had someone winning this fight. I can't remember who it was exactly. I think it might have been Barzola. I might have had Barzola winning the fight, but they went to a draw. And again, like it wasn't an egregious call. It wasn't terrible. I can see how they could see it being a draw, because neither one of them really kind of pulled away and really was controlling. It was grappling heavy. It really was. I mean, Ronnie Yaya is known for his ground game, and Barzola really had no fear who went in there. Eliza dos Santos versus Alexi Chenko. That was another one went to decision. Another pretty good fight. This one was one I was really impressed with. The Amanda Rivas versus Ron Demarcos. This Rebus girl, she's the total package. She's adorable on the mic. She's very attractive, like top 10 hottest girls in the UFC for sure. Probably. Never mind. Never mind. She but and then all that aside, she's just talented, man. She knows how to fight and she likes to fight. She's like the nicest person in the world outside of the octagon. Then she gets in. She was really trying to kill Ron Demarcos, and she was going for the finish all the way to the last second of the fight, even though she had completely dominated the entire fight and she was ending it in top mount. And she could have just laid there and let the time do its thing, but she was really trying to finish the fight the entire time. And she's violent and she's fun to watch and she's skilled. And she was. Ronda has been there with the best of the best. She's been there with the best of the best, and she's always a grinder. But she just looked completely outclassed in this fight, all from start to finish. Amanda Rebus she's in the strawweight division, which is the most stacked female division, and outside of the welterweight or 155ers maybe. The most stacked division in the UFC altogether. I believe the welterweights is more stacked just because, 170 is just murderer's row. 155 isn't as stacked. It's not as deep, and especially when you have the champ who's so high on the mountain and it doesn't seem like anyone can touch him, other than we'll see if someone gets to touch him in 2 weeks. But, that one's kind of harder to see just because they got a lot of good people, but then he's leaps and bounds above everybody else, so it doesn't really seem like that division is that great because you don't see the belt changing hands. And the women's strawweight, it is absolutely stacked, and this Amanda Rebus is one that is going to make some noise in the division, I believe. I really think so. She's one to for sure keep your eye on. Brandon Moreno versus Jussier Formiga. I got in some trouble on this fight because I took to Twitter after the fight because I was very unimpressed with the decision, and I was very unhappy with what happened. And it was really just because I had done my FanDuel fantasy betting and I had put money on this fight and I lost. But it really was. Moreno was tuning him up on the feet and he had some good exchanges on the ground. But then it got to the point where Formiga had complete control of him, and Moreno just laid flat on his back, not even trying to escape, not even trying to do anything. He just laid there, and to me, that's like quitting. That's giving up. Like, you're not even trying to get out of a position. You're just hoping and praying that the ref will come in and save you. And the ref did come in and save him in the first round, which would have been a complete dominant round for Formiga because he would have spent a good majority of the time on top control. And even if he wasn't doing anything, Brandon was literally flat back doing nothing. No attempt. So he just was praying that they got stood up. I don't agree with the stand-up. I think the stand-up was bullcrap. I think that ended up losing the round for Formiga. And then again in the third round, Formiga got the top control again, and he wasn't doing anything. I can see the argument. That he didn't do anything once he got on top, and when they were in the striking exchange, that Brandon was getting the better of the striking exchange. I get it. I understand. There's nothing really I can say to argue that, other than I just again I look at the situation like if there weren't refs involved, if there weren't anything involved, if there wasn't any of this involved, and this was a fight to take place in my backyard, who would I walk away feeling won the fight? Well, if I see two people fighting and one person gets top control of the other person and lays on top of him, and the bottom person just goes limp and does nothing and doesn't try to get out and doesn't try to defend themselves, I'm going to say that the person on top wins that fight because they've got you basically submitted without actually doing a submission. They have you just saying, okay, this is where I'm going to be now. I guess I'm under you. So again, and I got into it with a guy on Twitter. And then I realized I was being a troll and I had to stop. We hurled some insults back and forth at each other. And then I was like, he mocked the podcast and he mocked my 2 followers. And I was just like, what am I doing? Why don't want to be one of those people. I don't want to be a troll. So I just sent him like this crying face because I was like, what comeback do I have to that? I don't have a ton of followers. Like I would, obviously that's the goal, and you don't get them. You don't get followers without, putting in the time and putting in the effort. And also, so like I really had no response to that. So I was just like, oh, you made me sad. And then he's like, I'm sorry, you're a good guy and your podcast is good or something like that. I don't know if he was being serious. He doesn't have to be. He doesn't owe me anything. But I just thought it was funny because I was like, I'm totally being a troll right now. What am I doing? So I had to pump the brakes on that. But yeah, the fight just pissed me off. I didn't think that really Brandon won it, but I can definitely see how I'm the only person who feels that. So then we got to the main card. Makdessi versus Trinaldo. Trinaldo just tuned him up. Just walked through him. Just did whatever he wanted. Was striking. Just, I mean, Makdessi had it. I mean, I guess he had some good defense. Some of his defense looked great because he didn't get hit with every single punch that Trinaldo flew through, but it was just not a good. It was Makdessi was completely outclassed. Like he did not look like he belonged in that same octagon. He just looked like he was not ready yet. He was not on that level. And then the biggest disappointment in all of UFC, Johnny Walker versus Nikita Krylov. Johnny Walker, I went right to my Facebook as soon as this fight was over. I said, everybody who thought that he was the next contender for John Jones, you were clueless. You were oblivious. This guy is not that good. He had some explosive knockouts against guys that were on the same level as him. Okay, he wasn't knocking out people who were like, had this high, were in the higher echelon. He was knocking out his people on his level. Now that he's stepped up, I mean, he's gotten knocked out twice in a row. Oh, sorry. He didn't get knocked out this fight. It was another unanimous decision. But he just looked not good. His cardio was terrible. Like, yes, he's explosive, but man, if you don't have cardio, the first round he was gassed. He was gassed in the first round, and he wasn't even really throwing a lot of explosive shots. Like, he was doing more fence work, back up against the fence, trying to defend the takedown, which he wasn't that great at. He had a couple good scrambles. I mean, he's not completely inadequate. Like, I'm more upset because of the hype that everyone put behind him. I think he's on a good trajectory as a young fighter and getting a lot of experience and learning from his mistakes. I'm just so annoyed. I hate these flash in the pan, shoot him to stardom right away type of fighters, because it rarely pans out, and then we got all excited and invested on this person who still has a lot of work to do, and it ends up hurting their career because then they wonder if they should even be there. They're not like, oh, I'm going through the process to get better. Like, there's levels to this game, and I need to get to a certain level, but I have to be involved with it. I have to play with the big boys. I have to see where my mistakes are. I have to know what it's like to go up against the best coaches in the world and the best teams in the world. Like, there's a growing process, and it's like, how many times have we seen, like in the NFL, how many times have we seen a good quarterback, or someone who looked great in college go be a first-round draft pick, go be a starter on the team right away and be a starter on the team, and then not do anything, be terrible out there, or be good for one season, and then everyone kind of figures them out, and then they're not that great. We've seen that almost every single time. And then in contrast, you have someone like Aaron Rodgers, who sat on the bench behind Brett Favre, who Aaron Rodgers was one of the, is one of the best quarterbacks to play the game. And, they're definitely top 10. I know people would say 1 or top 3 or whatever, but I'm going to just say top 10 to play it safe. And he sat on the bench for years. He didn't go right away. He sat there and he learned the system. He learned how to play the game. Then when he finally got his opportunity, he was able to shine. So Johnny Walker is one that he's just not there yet. His cardio needs to figure out his cardio. And he's at where's he at? He's either at Tri-Star or he's at Jackson Wink, I believe. Maybe we'll say here in his bio. No, it doesn't say anywhere. Anyways, doesn't matter. He's got a lot of things to work on. He really has a lot of things to work on. And Nikita looked good, man. He looked real good. He looked really good. And again, like, it wasn't a complete one-sided ass whooping. You know, Johnny had some shining moments. He had some good moments. He's definitely moving up, but he was nowhere near ready to fight for the title. That was ludicrous. That was insane. The whole time people were talking like that, I was like, what are we doing? He's nowhere near ready. So I'm glad that, you know, I was right. Renato Moicano beat Damir Hanzovic via rear naked choke within 44 seconds. And then there was a lot of talk. There was a lot of talk afterwards. Renato was really emotional. Really emotional. He's had a son that was in the hospital, and then he said something like he was kind of saying something to Hardzovic, and he's like, I wanted to fight more. And Hardzovic's like, well, then you shouldn't have choked me out, or you shouldn't have submitted me. Like, it was a funny exchange. Like, I wanted to keep fighting. He's like, well, you shouldn't have beat me. If you wanted to keep fighting, you shouldn't have beat me so fast. So that was, I think, the first finish that we had of the night. Like, I just read off like 8 matches or something, and it was finally we got a first round choke. And then Gilbert Burns goes and gets a first round TKO of Damian Maia. It was a real emotional win for him because he's always respected Damian, always loved Damian, like really, really respects him. And so it was tough for him. It was tough, but he was also super excited. Now he's calling out Kolby Covington. I believe he called out. I believe he said where did he say he was going to be this weekend? He might have said that he's healthy and ready to go and be a replacement in the for the Woodley Edwards card the next week. No, that's not. When was it? What the heck? I can't remember. He's putting his name out there. He's just putting his name out there. He says he's ready to go to the next level. Kolby Covington was the big one that he was calling out. I know there was another 2 people that he said he's going to go watch the fight, and he's going to be a replacement if either of them can't make it. But yeah, he went in, finished a legend. I mean, Damian Maia is one of the best guys on the ground. Gilbert's very good on the ground. I believe they had some grappling exchanges, but when it came down to it, they stood up, and Gilbert's hands just powerful, put him to sleep. So and then Charles Oliveira versus Kevin Lee. Kevin Lee loses via 3rd round guillotine. And, you know, Kevin Lee's another one that, man, we tried to shoot him up to stardom so fast. We tried to get him up and have him be like, the next GSPs, what everyone was saying. And even the last podcast before this one even came out, I was talking about how excited I was. And I think he's on a good trajectory, and he's in a good camp now. And And you know what? I just don't think that anymore. I don't think that he is there. I don't think that he's going to ever be there. I think that he could fight for the belt again. I think that he could string some wins together, and he's exciting, and he could get a couple more wins. But he said he's done for a couple of years. I mean, I don't really believe that, but he says he's going to take some time to really figure out what the problem is. And you know, he has to. To me, first of all, he didn't make weight. So automatic red flag, like, what's going on? Why are you missing weight? And he just said it was because of time, because of all the crazy stuff, which is an easy excuse, kind of. You know, it was crazy. It was a crazy week for everybody, though, and everyone else made weight. So why are you the only one not making weight? He said he didn't have the best nutritionist, or he didn't have a nutritionist down in Brazil with him, and he thought the UFC was going to provide one, and they didn't. But I believe that's a conversation you have ahead of time. Like, that's something you should have figured out. If they've done it for you maybe once before, if they did it for you every single time, and then this one card they just didn't do it and they didn't tell you about it, then that's one thing. But if they only did it for you 1 or 2 times when you were in Vegas, at the by the PI, then you're making just excuses. Like, you just expected them to send a nutritionist down there, unless they do it all the time, and this was the one time they didn't. But then no one else complained about it. No one else seemed to have an issue with it. So I'm really, the weight issue was a problem. Then the fight, he looked okay. There, he had some really good shining moments. He was hitting Oliveira with some big shots, but Oliveira just looked better than him on the feet. He was landing uppercuts, throwing rear uppercuts and landing them from a mile away. And he kept cracking Kevin. He kept cracking him with those uppercuts. Like, I got on my Twitter and I was like, those uppercuts though, because it was impressive how many he was able to land. And then, he takes the back of Kevin Lee. Obviously, Oliveira is a wizard on the ground. Just super impressive. And was tying up Kevin's legs the whole fight. Kevin was really not really doing anything. Even though he was in top control, it looked like Oliveira had him. Like, it seemed like he had the control because he had him by the leg, and Kevin wasn't really able to escape, wasn't able to like pull his leg out and stand the fight back up. He was kind of stuck in there. And then Oliveira just waited and took his time, and then got to the back and choked or it wasn't rear naked, it was a guillotine. But he was able to finish the fight via choke. And this is where I think Kevin Lee really does need to sit down and reevaluate like who he is as a man. He taps, and Oliveira, or the ref steps in, breaks him up. Oliveira lets go of the submission and then rolls over to like get up, and Kevin Lee jumps on his back and acts as if he's like trying to like keep the fight going. And the ref is like, no, stop. And Kevin's kind of looks at the ref and he's like, no, we're still going. And he completely tried to like keep fighting. Like, he tried to trick the ref and the crowd. Well, there was no crowd. That's another thing I want to talk about is the crowd, but what they're doing with that. But he tried to act as if it didn't happen. He was trying to act like he didn't tap, although it was so obvious and so clear that he tapped 6 or 7 times on Oliveira's shoulder, like out in the open, bop, 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 bop. And then he tries to act as if he didn't do it, and tries to keep the fight going. And where I say, like, as a man, or just as like a human, just as like a decent human, why are you trying to pull that? Like, we all saw what happened. Everybody saw. I mean, we all saw. And then the thing is if you had pulled it off, say you did somehow, the ref said, "Oh, okay, keep fighting. I messed up," and just let him keep fighting. Like, do you think that if we would have been tricked, we really would have fallen for the fact that he had a deep guillotine on you and he just let it go? And not only did he just let it go, but he let it go, completely let go of you, rolled over and started basically crawling away and allowing you to take his back. Like, in what world would that have happened in a fight? And so just the optics of what was going on, like, he's in a deep guillotine and then Oliveira just lets it go and rolls over and starts crawling away, and then you jump on his back. Like, not even that. Just, there's no way that could have been anything other than the refs had stopped the fight because you had tapped, and that was it. But he tried to fake it. He tried to pretend like the fight was going to still be going. And a lot of people are giving him credit, and they're like, "Oh, he was kind of out of it because he was choked and he must have forgot that he tapped." No. Kevin Lee is the type of person that thinks that it's okay to cheat to win. If that's the type of crap that he's going to pull, he's that type of person. That it is just, that's not a decent person to be. Like, that's not I'm not going to speak to him really on like a personal level because I don't know him as a person, but like as a fighter, it says a lot about who you are if you're that type, and you're not a decent fighter. Like, you're not respectable. He lost a lot of respect. Gamebred Jorge Masvidal came right out and was like, "You're a scumbag," and you tapped and then tried to pretend like you didn't. Like, he went off on him and was like, "You're a complete piece of trash," and I have a hard time agreeing as a fighter. As a fighter, I'll say that. As a human, I don't know him. As a man, I don't know him. I don't want to speak to that. But as a fighter, if you pull some stunt like that, like, you don't deserve to be in there with people who are like working, giving their entire life for this, and to be a respected martial artist. Like, you don't deserve to be and to share the octagon with him. Like, I'm so full of that. Like, I think he needs to take 2 years off, and he really needs to reevaluate who he is as a fighter. Because if you are going to, it's the same as the like fake knee to the head that Koscheck got. It was so blatantly fake, and yet he tried to pass it off as his real. I mean, did we see him again after that? I can't even remember if we saw him again, if we saw him fight again, if anyone saw him fight again after that. I mean, that was such a slap to his character, and it's crazy. It's crazy. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, that's just my opinion on it. I thought that was pretty awful of him. But yeah, that was the card, man. Like I said, it was probably a C-. It wasn't terrible. It was just kind of mid-grade. Right down the middle, there were a couple cool moments, but nothing really great. And that might be our last fight of 2020. That might be the last card of 2020. We don't know what's going on. Like I said, the UFC, the main event just got scrapped for the next fight. But who knows if the whole card's if the whole card is scratched. I mean, I should have checked before I got on here to see if the whole card's scrapped. But man, it's crazy. It's crazy right now, and that's kind of unfortunate that was I wish the last fight of 2020 would have been the Weili Zhang Joanna Jędrzejczyk fight. Like, if they were gonna stop doing combat sports for a while, or all sports for a while, that would have been the one to go out on. That would have been one people been like, oh, like, okay, that's quite the send off. That's quite the send off. So, yeah, man, it's my job's gonna be tough. I was joking around with another podcaster that does MMA podcasts, and I was like, dude, what are we gonna do? What are we gonna talk about? We kind of shot ourselves in the foot. We thought we had someone who talks about podcast or talks about MMA, you think that, this doesn't have a season, so it goes all the time. There's always something to talk about. There's always news. There's always new signs. There's always, so you think you're gonna have constant content, and then something like this happens, and you're like, what am I gonna talk about? So we came up with an idea. What we're gonna do is because we're thinking gaming is gonna be the new competitive sport, because you can do it from your house. Twitch is already big, watching people play video games, things like that. So I'm thinking what it's going to be is combat sports, or people playing Madden, or people playing NBA. What's the basketball one? 2K. You're going to see all the people doing that, and so I'm going to report on those. Like, those are going to become the big events. So we're going to have to report on just people gaming. So I was like, you get a bunch of people over at your house, and you get the entire card together as if it was this weekend was continuing. You guys do the commentating for it, and then I'll do the post-fight analysis, the breakdown. Because we got to talk about something. We got to report on something. I can't be on here talking about. I mean, I don't know what I could talk about. Can't talk about relationships. I don't know nothing about them. So I don't know, man. We'll see. We'll see, everyone. But I'm going to keep doing it as long as I can, keep talking as much as I can, keep trying to give you guys something. So pay attention. Please support me. I'm always looking for sponsors, looking for, always appreciate likes and subscribes and shares. You can find us on Instagram at Still Fist Fight. You can find us on Facebook at Still Fist Fight Night. You can find this podcast on iTunes and YouTube and iHeartRadio. Man, there will be a next time. I can promise you that. This isn't my last one, but until next time, be good to yourself, be good to each other, and wash your hands.